Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Hellbound, episode 6. So, this is of course the last episode of this season, which, why should I even say that? People who had gone on to this Netflix and said like, oh, there's probably one last thing. Yeah, there's one last thing for me to cover. So thank you for being a part of this ride. Thank you for otherwise watching this video or coming back to it or anything to just be like, oh, I didn't even know this person's name because, or I didn't know who this was, or I don't even know what he's talking about because, that can happen also. So I think really the demons aren't even the villains in this story. I think that gosh darn baby is the villain of this story. That baby has been orchestrating and plotting through a whole number of episodes. And I really think that that baby was really like step over demons. Like, no, this whole baby situation, they need to like figure out how to like do something with that. They need to figure out that baby. They just need to do something with that. And maybe they'll do that by the end of this episode. Anyways, so, because really the focus upon this last episode is to be what is to happen with this child, and everything else kind of just takes a back seat. It is kind of a weaker ending to this, like, it is kind of a weak ending to this show, as if, like, they didn't have much going on with this ending, but, like, when you really look at every one of these episodes, you could say that there probably isn't much going on. But there's always some kind of like one event where you're just like, oh, like what's going on here? I'm interested. I'm hooked. I want to know what's going to happen next. And so bravo to the writers for doing that. Like how we really have these guys who were to keep people's interest in the show. And it seems like it's going very well on Netflix. It's going to be seemingly in the top 10 right now of an interest, and we'll see how that kind of trickles down over time. Sadly, it's like, sadly, it's not going to go like rocketing just like Squid Game did. But like when really looking at it, like Squid Game was just this like phenomena that like just came out and just wildly impressed so many people. And it was like, heck yeah, everybody wants to, like, SNL freaking covered Squid Game and all kinds of stuff. But, like, this show is really interesting, and it really gives you a debate and wants you, like, it has people talking about it. Like, it has me talking about it, hence why I do a review. So, with that said, let's go into episode 6. We also get to know a little bit more about the streamer, aka his name. And so I'm just like, okay, so his name was Mr. Lee the whole time, or Lee. And so I think that's kind of an interesting like thing to do. Like if you're gonna have technically a villain at the end of this show, you might as well have the streamer guy actually having something to do more than just being behind a camera the whole entire show. He's actually going and doing something in this episode. I'm like, oh, thank God. So he's not just this like this guy behind this camera. He's going to actually do something in this show. And I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, but that's all that really happens within this one. At the tail end of this episode, we do have this kind of very interesting cliffhanger-like thing of like, wait a minute, what? Huh? Like, so wait, like, are people to have been, like, had something gone wrong? Like, is there going to be some kind of alternative thing going on here, which I am now to possibly think in my head of what could be that alternative thing going on with this story, and I hope to go and talk about that in the end of when we get to spoilers, and then I'll talk about like what my thoughts are about what is to be within the next season. because they have that kind of cliffhanger thing of like, hey, naked woman, what? Woman without clothes on, what's going on there, huh? And so, with that said, let's just go into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into it. Let's just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we can spoil this episode. So, very beginning of the episode, we have kind of Bae and his wife having this kind of struggle of who, like where are they going to go with this baby? And so we have Bae's wife that is going to decide to want to bring her baby to the new truth while Bae is at work. And so Bae is to tell his wife, it's like, hey, like, don't bring it to the new truth people. And she's like already there. So Bae's wife brings this child to the new truth. And so UG is to go in there and is to see this child and see this case. And so UG is telling everybody to scramble because they need a meeting right here and now about what they should do with this baby. And so whatever their plan is, at the end of it, it's really just like, hey, we're going to try and separate this baby from this mother. And because she showed them the video of him getting the decree, which luckily they had that video there, or no one would have known. And so they're trying to separate the child from the mother. And so Bae ends up telling the Soto people, like Min, who is to be really the only one left here, like, hey, like my wife is turning this child in to the new truth. And they're like, oh no, like we gotta stop her from that. We gotta like get her from the new truth people because it's the right thing to do. So we scramble to get Bae and the Soto people to get this child and find out that Mr. Lee is trying to be with these Soto people trying to hide out because, like, he of course had gotten a decree himself. And so we have Bae's daughter talking to Min, or Bae's daughter, Bae's wife, what am I saying? Bae's wife is to mention that their child is screaming out for help, and for her, like, she wants to answer this call, she wants to try and help her baby, but what can she really do? So Lee is to go off and is to, of course, make a phone call to the new truth. And so he is calling them and he is telling them that he had gotten a decree, but he had gone and done absolutely nothing wrong within the guidelines of this new truth law of things, because he knows the laws and the rules and whatever way better than even any of these people that are to be with the new truth, because he's like, dude, I've been dealing with this a lot longer than any of you people, and so I know everything much more like black and white better than you do. But they're still trying to like say that he's like stupid or he's dumb or whatever. So he's like, God, like, so he is like basically saying that his like demon calling like thing is to be 5 minutes after the babies, coincidingly weirdly. And so the pastor is to call Lee, like, well, hey, like, because he's getting fed this information by these people with these phones just telling him what to say here, feeding him like legal precedents and all kinds of stuff and high-fiving and like, yeah, because this guy is such a sham. So the pastor is to mention uh, to Lee that he is a messiah and that he is going to have to be the one to correct this whole thing and and kind of correct God's mistake. So after Lee is to hang up with them, the pastor is to just be like, okay, like, what are we gonna do now? Where are we gonna find where this guy is? And so they're like, well, we can just trace the call. I'm like, wait a minute, what? You can't trace the call? Like, the call has to be made for you to trace it. Like, how can you trace the call afterwards unless you, like, star 69 him and then he answers and then you trace the call then? To, like, keep him on hold or something? But, like, you have to trace the call when the call is being made unless, like, I'm not a detective, but, like, maybe somebody Google it right now. Find out if you can trace the call after a call has been made. That makes no sense to me. Like, I guess you can probably trace maybe the cell phone that this call is being called from, but still, I would scratch my head and say that doesn't seem to make rational sense to me. You would think that the people would be, like, tracking just every phone call anyways to, like, ahead of time when someone is to make a random call here. You would think they would track the phone call because that would be the smart thing to do. So that way these people can help this person, like, if they want to just have this whole thing be televised. And plus, they should track all these phone calls anyways because it's smart on their part. So now we push on here, and so we have it where Min is to tell Bei's wife that they need to go into a much safer place if this demonstration is going to happen regardless. They might as well go into a much safer place instead of this, like, this home where, of course, numerous things can get destroyed and numerous people could get hurt in the process. So Bei goes out to this apartment complex and is to shout out to people, like, give them a little shout out, like, hey, TT and Bay Ray. Anyways, so Bay's wife is telling these people, hey, like, my baby is going to get sent to hell soon. Whip out all your phones and live stream all this. So that way this can be publicized and on the news and everybody all over town can cover this. And so that leaves all of a sudden the New Truth trying to triangulate and figure out where this location is to make their way there. And so when Bei is to make it to his wife, he is to bump into Lee, and Lee is in his arrowhead gear, and he's going and taking out several of the Soto people. And so I know I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm probably rushing through this, but I think I'm getting to, like, the big points of this whole ordeal. So we have Lee, who's basically tell Bei that what his plan is that he's going to kill Bei, kill Bei's wife, and then take Bei's baby and just be in some kind of place where nobody knows that a person is to be, like, taken who is to be this baby. And then Lee will hide the body of this baby for no one to find. And then Lee then will get taken, and then no one will know that this baby was to be taken. And so Lee is going to fix God's mistake. So Lee is to try and find out Bae, but really this is all for naught, because Bae is to eventually go and find his wife. And while Min is going off and fighting Lee, and like there's a whole bunch of like fighting going on here weirdly. And so we have, of course, the demons coming for Bae's son. And so what we do here is that like we have this action sequence where like these parents are going and like the wife is grabbing the baby and just kind of like flinging and like rolling with this child and just like, no one's gonna take my baby, none of these demons. And so we had this like this action sequence going on where like all of a sudden like we have like Bae who's trying to attack these demons to try and like fight him off. I'm like, dude, this isn't gonna work. But hey, like I appreciate the effort, but it's like it's gonna be a waste. So what they just plan to do is now Bae's wife is holding on to the child, and so Bae is to wrap this like this tubing thing around his wife's body and is to like hold on to her as tightly as he can. And they're just kind of hugging one another, laying down, I believe, or just kind of in some kind of like position of just like shielding this baby from him getting sent down. And so we have the demons who are going and, of course, blasting their blast to cremate somebody. And so all of a sudden we're assuming like, okay, well, the baby's gonna die and the parents are gonna be fine, and man, will that be sad. But instead we find out that the parents both turned into crispy critters and the baby's fine. I'm like, wait, what? Did the demons not like, did they not understand like what they were trying to do? Like you would have thought like all of them would have just gotten taken then. But I guess maybe there was some like volunteer as tribute thing going on where it's like, hey, like we'll sacrifice ourselves if you leave our baby alone, kind of thing. So all of a sudden Lee comes down and he is to just start to like pull apart like these bodies, and he is to be asking like the heavens or whatever like what he's supposed to do here. And he's like, oh, we'll follow through with it anyways, to basically say that he needs to kill the baby. And so Min comes out of the fray and is to go and fight off Lee. And she fights him long enough, and Lee is like, hey, I'm really running out of time here. Like, I can't mess with you now. I gotta go and take down this baby. And so Min is to go and fight off Lee long enough for him to then get taken. And so Lee ends up getting killed. Min ends up taking the baby. And the new truth just is to roll in at the last ditch minute for them to not do bub kiss nothing, because Min is to go and take this baby and is to shield it, and some person is to give her a blanket, and she's like, okay, like who's coming after this baby? So Min is making her way out, heading on to some car of sorts, where it seems like the driver is to mention that maybe this time around we should have our own kind of like judgment, or kind of take all this into our own hands instead of letting other people decide. Like, hence why we have like people in jail, people in prison, people going on death row because, like, we've technically already done that, but so I don't quite get what this guy is to say that, like, well, maybe he's thinking that maybe we should actually take the bad people and cremate them like Jung was possibly doing. I don't know. Because they're going to possibly get sent down regardless. Or they should. Because they're bad people. Yeah. So, Yuji is coming with all of his new truth people, and they're like, where's the baby? And so all of a sudden we have one old man who's to call Yuji this fraud or this liar or this whatever. And so Yuji just starts beating the crap out of this guy, just punching into him, just like he's nobody's business. And so right after that, there's police officers that are with the new truth. And so this police officer just arrests Yuji for battery. I'm like, Yuji, you are such a moron. Like, you could have got arrested for assaulting a person or like whatever. Like, that guy would probably easily have wanted to press charges, or like if you like beat a person to death, like that would technically be like a crime. So Yuji is going to jail, and so like I think maybe the new truth is gonna maybe possibly disband. Who knows? We still have the pastor, and he still is probably like running this whole thing, or the chairman, and everyone's gonna still lick his boots. So like, we still got the chairman. He's just gonna find another disciple or another person to just kind of run the show. And so the way we finish off with this episode is that Park, who had died in the other episode once before, where supposedly she had 2 kids from, I guess, 2 different men. And so we find out that all of a sudden this girl had gotten resurrected, and now she is seemingly naked on this ground where her body had been, and that's how the episode just finishes off. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what? Like, this person is to, of course, like, and man, this is like an hour, and like I wrapped this up fairly easily. This is like an hour worth of a show, and I'm like already like done with it pretty much. I already talked about everything. Again, there was not a lot to talk about here. There's a heavy amount of dialogue in this episode also. And so what do you guys think Park is doing here? Are these people going to come back because their judgment is wrong? Are we going to have it where Park comes back as some demon that starts to like claim people and send them back and make her own judgments on people? Is that where the second season is going? Wouldn't that be interesting to have Park then go and choose people to go down to hell? Or maybe she had made a bargain down there to maybe send people down there if she was to be saved. Wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe like a Spawn scenario, or like a Ghost Rider kind of character that is to like go on and be like the bounty hunter on Earth. Wouldn't that be an interesting kind of way about doing things? But yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how this all plays out. It's weird that this is going to be such a short review. Let me know in the comments below if I possibly had missed anything. because I know that's bound to happen. I know I didn't go into heavy detail of every little crumb, little something upon this show. Let me know your just overall reactions of the season. Let me know how you felt about any number of things. I thought that this was a good show. Like, I don't think there was a part of me where, like, especially that whole pilot episode where we're like understanding what's really going on there. I was like, ooh, this is gonna get really interesting. Like, I think immediately once you watch the pilot episode, like, you're immediately hooked. Like, I think some people might go on here and be like, no, I hated this one, I hated this show, or I hate it, like, and they watch every single episode. Like, some people may not like it because it wasn't a good enough payout or something like that for every single episode, and I can understand that too. But man, these shows are really, like, they might have a very simple approach to it. It might be overly simple, but man, like, you can still, like, enjoy it and like it and see how every episode plays out. But without a doubt, I think I'm done here. I think I'm gonna call this one a wrap. This is weird to have. Like, this is an hour-long episode, and I couldn't even get it past 30 minutes. Or anything else, I would have to, like, go and, like, yeah, like, all this happened and all this stuff and all the and I'd have so much I'd have to say in here. Because there's a lot of stuff going on a lot of the episodes. But, like, this one, yeah, it was, like, a weaker ending, and they stretched it out for, like, an hour. But a good enough, I guess, payout, or a good enough approach of the way they ended this, but, like, I was still just like, man, but I wanted there just to be this, like, huge, like, build, and there wasn't. But oh well, like, it's a simple show. Like, how much money did they probably have to spend on these CGI'd characters, and how much money did they also have to spend on a number of these, like, these kind of, like, these set places, and, like, all these news people and these VIP people, and, like, how much they had to really, like, put on a show for every single one of these episodes, and how these people had to so often, like, react to nothing, and so made for a really interesting show. So with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me know how you felt about the show. Let me know whatever. Tell me. Comment. Whichever. However you want to approach this. Fun, good show. Overall, that pilot episode, though, was really just like, huh? The pilot episode was so, like, bizarre. I was like, what's going on? But then we trickle out and just to understand and help. They, like, really did help break down the show. They really did help us figure out what was going on here, because, like, it was bound to have that kind of time to just, like, kind of, like, trickle down this information. Here's the one thing, though. Whatever happened to whatever happened to Hoon's daughter? Like, they never finished that up. They never went anywhere with that. Like, was Hoon's daughter going to hell? Like, is she gonna get a decree? Like, are they gonna come back to that in the second season? Are we gonna come back to Hoon and all these people from the first season? Are we gonna come back to them, or in the second, or is it in the second season we're just gonna completely do a different story here? I'm curious. I'm kind of fascinated to see what they do in the second season, but we'll get there. So, yeah. So I'm going to get out of here finally. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.